We got another update here on something that I covered not too long ago. And some people didn't listen to the totality of my messaging because if they had done so, they realized that it was something I predicted would happen based on other risk factors. Forever Financial Freedom, one of these Titano forks, it truly was a Titano fork as built, apparently, and I'm going to be using a lot of CYA verbiage because it's still a developing situation even as I record this, but apparently has rug pulled. Now, there's a couple of things to be aware of with this. The reason I know people didn't listen to the full audio is I had at least 2 people respond in urgent fashion asking for the website address so that they could go take a look at it, even though I mentioned the website address in the audio itself. So that told me people didn't listen to the totality of my audio, which is frustrating in of itself, because it means that I was correct when I said that there's a lot of gamblers out there that just want to jump into it and that's all they cared about, despite me strongly saying I didn't recommend it. Let me repeat what I said in my initial analysis, and then I'll get to what looks like happened here so that you can correlate. And I'm going to clasp my hands together and hope, I don't pray, but I'm going to hope that this time you listen to the totality of my audio so you understand, so that in the future you don't make those mistakes of overlooking obvious signs, because it helps you. It's designed to educate you. It's designed to make you a stronger investor. I just hope that you take this information and actually use it this time. So before, what I said was that it's a Titano fork. Obviously, it's got a constrained inventory of 1 million tokens. It's trying to give this unrealistic APY in order to entice people to buy in, and then it was going to do a pre-sale, and the pre-sale was set up on Pinksale, and the pre-sale went through. And the problem with the pre-sale is, from what we can see, they oversold. Now, I have a couple of issues. One, the overselling to this degree should not have been easily possible. It's with this kind of constrained inventory, in order to even onboard the Pinksale, and this is where I'd like anybody who is in the business, if you got some knowledge, come on the show and talk it out. From what I understand of Pinksale, you would have to have told them when you set it up, they say that they're decentralized, they got no control over anything, but then they have a support outlet. So what's the point of the support if you don't do anything? But when you onboard the Pinksale, it has to know your total supply. It has to be able to see the contract. It has to have access to wallet addresses. It has to have access to enough data to be able to identify that the data you give them is accurate or not. If Pinksale does not screen that data, to me, that's them trying to absolve risk. And I have an issue with that, if that's the truth. I don't know if it is, but my understanding is you would have to have told them the total supply. In this case, 1 million tokens. Then you would have to have told them how many tokens you're going to make available for the pre-sale. In this situation, what looks like happened is these guys, the Forever Financial, tried to be slick with it, like Zab Judah says. And even though they quoted 1 million supply, the 1 million supply was not the initial total supply. That what looks like happened, if I read the data correct, is they started with like 300 something thousand in supply, and then they made half of that available for the pre-sale, and then the other half available for liquidity. Okay, so if that's true, this would have, that when I said it was not sustainable in my initial coverage, that goes to the to the nth degree, because it means that you're creating an artificial constraint. It's artificial because you already said the total should be 1 million, but you're starting with a third of that. I didn't see that there was any avenue where the rest of the tokens could have been, because the total supply should have been in concert with what they quoted. There's no reason that it wouldn't have been, except in situations where they wanted to mint tokens. So then fast forward, they do the pre-sale. This thing would have jumped like crazy, probably higher than any other token. And when we talk risk, I want to just put some numbers around what I'm talking about, because if you had bought in, let's say you spent $100, you'd have probably got 120, 150-ish tokens. Well, if I look at the number of tokens there, if this had moved forward as expected, you would have, at the rate that the coins were sold at the pre-sale, you probably would have gotten into minimum 1,000 per coin, probably 2,000 per coin. And this would have happened within the first, I'd say 8 to 12 hours. And then of course you'd have dumps because people would sell off this. But as it gets closer to the end of the pre-sale, now with Pinksale, because most outside the bubble don't do Pinksale, with Pinksale, before it goes live, quote unquote, so the end of their duration, you can withdraw doing what they call an emergency withdrawal of your funds. But that assumes that there's something that you would have learned prior to them going live that told you that you should do it. If there's nothing that you see or hear, you wouldn't be inclined to do it. So once it's funded or filled and it goes live, then you're supposed to be able to claim. Now, what Pinksale says is that at that point, the custody is in the hands of the project owner. So in this case, this would be Forever Financial. They're the ones who then would approve the ability to claim the tokens, which means that Pinksale, the organization, is out of control as far as the ability to claim the tokens. The challenge here is that what appears to have happened based on different commentary is that there was some sort of an AMA that took place after the pre-launch where they were answering questions, and then this was apparently an influencer, and the timing seemed off and it seemed sketchy to the people that were involved in it. I didn't see this, but it seems like the timing didn't make sense, because if you were going to hype a pre-sale, you would normally do this before the pre-launch. You wouldn't do it after, because it wouldn't make any sense unless you were trying to bank on the FOMO buys on the green candle. So that was number one that caught their attention. Number two was it seemed like the team really was not inclined to answer any fundamental questions. Three, of course, if you listen to my original coverage, I called out various things that I said did not spark confidence that they were long-term. A crappy website, a crap white paper, straight photocopy in some cases of Libero's text. There was nothing that told anybody, or should have, that it was going to be there long-term. There was no identification of any of the people involved in the thing. And most importantly, probably, being exclusive to Telescam. And if you've heard me for any period of time, you know I'm anti-Telescam. This is a good reason why. Then they sent out a message on their social media claiming that their Telescam had been hacked and that haters had gotten involved, and they misspelled haters. So now more of these red flags are showing up, at least as far as I see, that I don't think somebody's digging in and they're finding stuff. And as they find stuff, the team's getting sketchy. They're getting skittish and they're trying to make moves. So the new Telescam group is created, and it's still out there as of the date of this recording. But for whatever reason, there's no activity from any of the admins after a certain point. So after that AMA that they did, and I saw the pinned, when I went in, I looked at it, I saw the pinned deal where apparently it was supposed to be an AMA with a some sort of influencer or something. After that happened, then next thing we know, that person's they're not responding. Nobody's responding. Nobody's doing anything. What's weird about this, though, is that there was a message that said, claim your tokens as of a point, and it gave a link directly in the launch Telescam group, and it gave the link straight to the pre-sale, and it said, here it is. But in this one, everything was wrong, because again, when it had 1 million tokens over here, but over here it's got 320,000 tokens, you had the discrepancy, and it was on the Telescam. But then they're giving links to the pre-sale. It says the pre-sale's here, and you can go ahead and claim your tokens. So nothing's making any sense. Everything is just kind of gone crazy with this. Everything is inconsistent. Everything is just off whack. Nothing makes any sense. Fast forward a little bit. There's a new token that spins up, and it has the exact same text, literally word for word, exact same text as what Forever Financial had. And it's called OpenStream World Presale. This gets spun up. It's also on Pinksale. It has basically the delta. It's a different token, but it has the delta number of tokens of the other one. I'm breaking all this down because these guys or ladies, these people were brilliant, because what they're doing, it looks like to me, is they're exploiting a loophole in the Pinksale platform that I believe, in my opinion, is something only Pinksale can and should address. So Pinksale's platform apparently does not have enough due diligence to stop these tokens from doing what this one did, which is you can spin up a project, you can misrepresent the number of tokens that are available total, you can then mint later, because Pinksale's platform said that there was no minting function, but there must have been because people saw minting after the fact. We don't know why. So your platform allows people to go in there and misrepresent the supply of tokens. If they're misrepresenting the supply of tokens, how is it possible that you can do a presale of a percentage of the supply that is presented in the presale when the supply that's presented to the presale is faulty? Like that's what it is. So think of it this way. If I tell you that I'm going to make 5 million widgets available for everybody to buy in that gets in this thing, but I'm sitting on 10 million somewhere else, that's really the supply. But I tell you that there's 5 million. If people buy in based on the 5 million, they're basically buying in off the scarcity aspect, which means its price is artificially higher because there's really 15 million total. The price that person A that buys in pays is higher than what it's supposed to be based on the supply that's actually there. Because if I then introduce all these other ones, that's going to take the price. And I think these people are aware of what happened with Coinbase Pro when SHIB went live, because that's it. It wasn't an intent that it happened that way, but that's what happened, in that things were wrong. The price was wrong. Certain people paid higher than what they were supposed to. The price realigns itself. Now people are at a loss out of the gate because they bought at the higher price. That's what it looks like. They're exploiting a loophole. I call it a loophole in Pinksale's platform. If it doesn't do the checks it's supposed to do to make sure that the supplies that are presented to the platform are actually correct according to what blockchain says. Because when you spin up the contract, you can easily query what the total supply is. If they're not doing that, that means anybody can just fabricate a supply to force a scarcity and run away with the funds, because once that project goes live, if you're saying that the custody hands over to the token holder, that means the token holder never has to release any of the money. That means the money gets released to the token holder essentially as a rug pull, despite the fact that the liquidity is locked, despite the fact of any owner renounce. It doesn't matter. You're basically using the Pinksale platform to launder money in a way. Fundamentally, that's what we're talking. We're talking a platform that allows people to buy something, but then not claim what they purchased. And because they claim that it's decentralized, they're saying, oh, well, there's nothing we could do about it. Okay, but then the question comes up, and should, that why isn't the platform verifying the inventories that are being presented to it? We verify the total supply is what you told us in the code. We see it, and we did that query. It's a function. You call it, and it gives you a number, and you should verify that against what you told it. Second, the Pinksale platform said there was no minting function, but then minting happened. How can that be? How can that be possible? Unless the Pinksale platform didn't detect minting, and they might have just taken the word of the token provider that they can't mint. Well, that's a problem because you're presenting false information. So when they come back and say, do your own research, if you're presenting faulty data as part of the decision, I think that's a big problem. Maybe I'm just me, but I think that's a problem. And Pink's own documentation claims that they have anti-rug, and the buyers, we're going to make sure buyers are not ripped off and all this. But then Pinksales, by their own admission, will not get involved when something like this happens, because once it goes live, they kind of wipe their hands of it, even though the person isn't able to claim their tokens. Other projects then that have had something similar happen, they've been willing to intervene and say, we just need to make sure that the person's right. So they'll contact the project and say, we've got some people, they had this happen, you need to make it right, however you make it right. Here, they seem like they don't want to do that. And I'm curious why they feel that's the right answer, because this is something where I don't think it was any person's fault. The team might have gotten skittish and said, you know what, we jacked up and this isn't going to work, and we're going to launch a new token, which, again, this OpenStream world is a carbon copy of what we had before with the Forever Financial. So the fact that it's a carbon copy tells me that, yes, somewhere, somehow, they felt like, yep, we're going to go ahead and just take some of this cash and spin up a different token off over here. And then they're just going to possibly do it again and just keep on essentially laundering money on different projects. At what point does Pinksale own accountability for their platform being abused like this? If I go to OpenSea as an example, when people were abusing OpenSea to steal people's profits off NFTs and rugging those, OpenSea got involved. OpenSea actually worked to fix it. You can't just say, DSAN, our hands are wiped. At some point, you kind of have to own that, because if we lose platforms like Pinksale and we lose presales, I'm not going to say it's good or bad. I will say it hurts the industry. I'm putting this out because I think it's important you understand. Forever Financial did, I don't know why. I suspect it's because they did this intentionally, because it looks like they did, but I can't say for sure. But Forever Financial does not exist in form. The site's down. The social media is there, but it looks like it's abandoned as of 4 or 5 hours ago. The telescam's still out there, but nobody officially is there. So it looks like they basically just abandoned them without shutting them down, which is weird. It doesn't make any sense. But the website's down. The garbage white paper is still up there. So I don't know why that's there. The GitHub, the code is still out there, and the code is clean. There's nothing wrong with the code. This one looks like they exploited Pinksale so that they could get access to the liquidity by way of the presale and then just run away with it, because apparently the money is released to them the moment it goes live with no further accountability on the Pinksale side. And then Pinksale doesn't offer you anything to prevent that from happening. So that's all I got for you on Forever Financial. If you gambled into it, it's gone. Consider it gone. And I suspect that your money went over into this OpenString World presale, because there are links that take it straight to that. And I suspect that's what they did, is they took the cash and spun up a different project, and they're just going to keep hopping from project to project. I could be wrong, but it wouldn't surprise me any.